I never imagined my life would lead me here, pushing a battered cleaning cart through the opulent corridors of Koreatown Plaza in New York City. At 35, a black woman like me had learned to blend into the shadows, especially in places like this, a high-end hotel that doubled as a front for one of the most secretive Korean-American crime syndicates in the Northeast. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfumes and aged whiskey, the kind that screamed power and exclusion. Tonight, the entire top floor had been cleared for a private event, but I knew better. It was a selection gala, where models, beauty queens, and heiresses from elite families paraded like prizes, vying to become the syndicate's next media front, a polished face to launder their dirty dealings. I adjusted my faded gray uniform, the one that made me invisible to these people, and plugged in my old earbuds. Jazz notes from Miles Davis filtered through the static, drowning out the murmurs of the glamorous crowd lining the hallway. My hands gripped the cart's handle, calloused from years of undercover work, as I collected crumpled napkins and wine stains from the pre-event mingle. No one spared me a glance. I was just the help, the black janitor they assumed scraped by on minimum wage. But inside, my mind raced with the real mission, infiltrating this network as a Black Phoenix operative, gathering intel on money flows and alliances that spanned from Seoul to Wall Street. One wrong move, and it could all crumble. As I maneuvered the cart around a cluster of stilettos and designer gowns, the atmosphere shifted. Laughter tinkled like crystal, but it felt forced, laced with tension. These women weren't here for fun. They were auditioning for survival in a world ruled by men like Jean Kong. I kept my eyes down, focusing on a sticky spot on the marble floor, when a sharp voice sliced through the air. "Hey! What the hell are you doing here?" A Korean-American man in a crisp suit, the event manager, I pegged him instantly from my briefings, stormed toward me, his face twisted in disdain. His eyes raked over my uniform like I was dirt he'd forgotten to sweep away. "This floor is VIP only. You're contaminating the space. Get your ass downstairs before the boss arrives." I paused, my heart steady despite the insult. Contaminating. I'd heard worse, but it stung in that familiar way, the casual racism that reduced me to less than human. The women nearby tittered, one blonde model whispering loudly enough for me to hear, "Look at her, thinking she can just roll through like she belongs." I didn't react outwardly, just gripped the mop handle tighter, but inside, I catalogued every face, every word. This was data, ammunition for when the tables turned. The manager stepped closer, his breath hot with authority. I said, "Move. Or do I need to call security to drag you out?" The hallway seemed to hold its breath, the jazz in my ears clashing with the rising drama. I knew Jean Kong was due any second, and this confrontation was the spark I hadn't planned for, but in my line of work, chaos was often the key to revelation. The manager's words hung in the air like a slap, his voice echoing off the polished walls. I stood there, mop in hand, feeling the weight of every eye in the hallway on me. He leaned in closer, his cologne clashing with the chemical scent of my cleaning supplies, and jabbed a finger toward the elevator. "You deaf or just stupid? This isn't some charity event where trash like you gets to mingle. You're spoiling the whole setup, get lost before I make you regret it." My pulse quickened, a familiar heat rising in my chest. I'd faced this kind of venom before, the kind that stripped you down to your skin color and nothing else. As a black woman in spaces like this, it was almost routine, the assumptions, the dismissals. But tonight, it cut deeper because I couldn't afford to snap back. My cover depended on silence, on playing the role of the overlooked janitor while I mapped out every whisper, every deal in this den of vipers. I bit my tongue, tasting the metallic tang of restraint, and shifted the cart slightly to the side, pretending to focus on a non-existent smudge on the floor. That's when the blonde model chimed in, her voice dripping with mock pity as she sauntered over, heels clicking like judgments. She scanned me from my scuffed shoes to my braided hair, lips curling in a sneer. "Oh honey, look at you in that rag of a uniform. Straight out of the projects, huh? Thinking you can just wheel your way into our world. The boss doesn't need distractions from whatever this is." Her friends giggled behind manicured hands, one murmuring, "She's probably never seen a place this nice." Pathetic. The word stung, Each one a reminder of the barriers I'd shattered to get here, not as a cleaner, but as an operative embedded in the heart of this syndicate. I wanted to fire back, to tell them about the classified files I'd already transmitted, the empires I'd helped topple from the shadows. Instead, I exhaled slowly, my breath steady against the storm inside. "Just doing my job," I muttered under my breath, low enough not to escalate, but my eyes flicked up briefly, meeting the manager's glare. He scoffed, shoving the cart with his foot. "Your job? Make it quick, or I'll have security haul you out like the garbage you are." I nodded faintly, pulling the cart along the wall, my movements deliberate and unhurried. The jazz in my earbuds swelled, a defiant rhythm against their cruelty. They thought they were superior, but every insult was fuel, every glance a clue. Little did they know, the real power in this hallway wasn't in their gowns or his suit. It was in my quiet endurance, waiting for the moment to strike. As I edged toward the corner, the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, heavy with authority, and I braced myself for what came next. The tension in the hallway thickened like fog rolling in off the Hudson, every whisper dying as those deliberate footsteps approached. I kept my grip on the cart steady, my back to the approaching figure, but I could feel the shift, the way the air seemed to compress under the weight of unspoken power. The models straightened their postures, smiles freezing into masks of calculated allure. The manager stepped back, his earlier bravado evaporating like steam from a forgotten coffee. Jean Kong emerged into view, his presence commanding without a word. Tall and impeccably tailored in midnight black wool, he moved with the precision of a predator who owned the territory. His face was a study in control, sharp jawline, eyes like polished obsidian, betraying nothing. He scanned the lineup of women briefly, dismissing each with the indifference of someone who'd seen it all before. No nods, no lingering gazes, just a measured stride forward, the syndicate's invisible crown weighing on his shoulders. I didn't turn fully, but as he passed my position near the wall, our paths aligned for a split second. His eyes flicked toward me, not out of curiosity at first, perhaps just registering the anomaly in his perfectly curated space. But then they locked onto mine. I didn't drop my gaze. Why should I? In that moment, with the jazz still humming faintly in my ears, I held steady, my expression neutral but unflinching. It wasn't defiance, it was acknowledgement. I knew who he was, the architect of underground empires, the man whose decisions rippled through boardrooms and back alleys alike. And he saw a black woman in a janitor's garb, but something in my stare must have pierced through. He halted mid-step, the rhythm of his walk breaking for the first time. 1 second stretched into 2, then 3. The hallway plunged into absolute stillness, no rustle of silk, no clink of jewelry. The blonde model's hand froze halfway to her hair, the manager's mouth parted in silent shock. Even the distant hum of the city outside seemed to pause. Jin's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in that rare flicker of intrigue, as if I'd just rewritten a rule in his game. I didn't smile or speak. Just held the connection, my heart pounding with the thrill of the edge. In my mind, fragments of intel flashed, his alliances, his vulnerabilities. This wasn't planned, but it was perfect, a crack in the facade. The silence shattered only when he resumed his stride, slower now, vanishing into the conference suite. Whispers erupted behind me like a dam breaking, but I turned back to my cart, the mop gliding across the floor as if nothing had changed. Everything had. As the door to the conference suite clicked shut behind Jean Kong, the hallway exploded into a frenzy of hushed accusations, like a hornet's nest I'd unwittingly kicked. I could feel the shift immediately, the models and staff turning their sharpened gazes on me, their earlier indifference morphing into outright hostility. My cart creaked under my hands as I resumed pushing it, but the blonde from before blocked my path, her perfume invading my space like a territorial claim. "What was that stunt you pulled?" she hissed, her voice low but venomous, nails digging into her clutch. "You think staring down the boss makes you hot stuff? You're just the cleanup crew, know your place." Her eyes narrowed, scanning my uniform again, as if it offended her personally. Behind her, another woman with sleek dark hair joined in, smirking. "Seriously, girl, that was embarrassing. Mr. Kong doesn't waste time on, well, you." Stick to scrubbing toilets. The event manager, recovering from his momentary freeze, barreled over, his face flushed with rage. He slammed a hand against my cart, rattling the bottles inside. You heard them, pack up and vanish. This is no place for your little games. You've already disrupted everything, don't make me escalate this. His tone carried that familiar edge of entitlement, the kind I'd encountered in countless ops, where authority was wielded like a blunt instrument against anyone who didn't fit the mold. Snickers rippled through the group now, a couple of staff members leaning in to add fuel. One guy in a server vest whispered loudly to his buddy, "Did you see her locking eyes like she owns the joint? Bold for someone hauling trash." His friend chuckled, "Yeah, black chick acting all equal in a spot like this. Delusional. Bet she's never even met someone of his caliber." Their words landed like barbs, each one probing for a reaction, but I kept my expression blank, channeling the discipline from years in the field. Inside, though, a quiet fury simmered, not just at the slurs, but at how predictable it all was. These insults weren't random, they were threads in a larger web, revelations of the syndicate's underbelly, the biases that kept their hierarchy intact. I noted the faces, the inflections, storing them away like evidence in a vault. Without a word, I maneuvered the cart around the blonde, my steps measured, refusing to rush or bow. Their laughter echoed down the corridor, but it only sharpened my resolve. This was far from over, it was just the ignition. I slipped into the staff break room at the end of the corridor, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a swarm of distant insects. The space was cramped, cluttered with lockers and half-empty coffee mugs, a stark contrast to the luxury just beyond the door. My hands moved automatically, popping open the panel on the vacuum cleaner, not to replace a mundane battery, but to check the concealed recording device nestled inside. It hummed faintly, capturing every snippet of conversation from the hallway feed I'd rigged earlier. Satisfaction flickered through me, this op was progressing, even if the personal toll was mounting. A soft shuffle drew my attention. Mr. Lee, the elderly Korean-American chef who'd been here longer than most, leaned against the counter, wiping his hands on a towel. His face, lined with years of late-night shifts, creased with concern. "Maya, you all right? I heard the commotion out there. Facing off with Mr. Kong like that, it's not something folks do lightly around here." I offered a faint smile, setting the vacuum aside and leaning on a stool. The adrenaline from the encounter still thrummed in my veins, but I kept my voice even, measured. "I'm holding up, Mr. Lee. Thanks for asking. But honestly, it's not me who should worry, some folks out there might have bigger problems brewing." My words hung lightly, a subtle nudge without giving away the game. He tilted his head, curiosity sparking in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "The way they treated you, it's not right. But Mr. Kong, he doesn't pause for anyone. You sure you're not shaken?" I reached into my pocket, pulling out the small black cloth I'd pocketed earlier from a spilled tray near the VIP lounge. Unfolding it carefully, I revealed the embroidered red phoenix emblem, its threads glinting under the harsh light, a symbol reserved for the syndicate's inner circle enforcers. "Found this napkin in the ladies' lounge earlier. Funny how it ended up there, don't you think? Almost like someone got careless." Mr. Lee's eyes widened, recognition dawning as he leaned in closer. "That's not standard issue. Where'd you really get it?" I folded it back, tucking it away with a shrug. "Just doing my rounds. But if it belongs to who I suspect, it could mean trouble for the owner. Loose ends like this, they unravel fast in a place like this." My tone stayed casual, but the implication lingered, planting seeds of doubt. Inside, my thoughts raced. This scrap was more than fabric, it was leverage, a thread connecting low-level slip-ups to the higher echelons I was targeting. Mr. Lee nodded slowly, his expression shifting from worry to quiet admiration, but I cut the moment short, standing up. "Anyway, back to work. Keep an eye out, okay?" As I headed toward the door, the weight of the emblem in my pocket felt like a promise. They saw me as disposable, but pieces like this were building my case, brick by invisible brick. The real unraveling was just beginning. Later that evening, as the hotel's energy pulsed with the undercurrents of the inner circle gathering, I retreated to a quiet utility closet down the hall, my break serving as cover for monitoring the feeds. The vacuum's hidden device synced seamlessly to my encrypted earpiece, pulling in audio from the bugs I'd planted earlier in the vents and under trays. It was risky, but necessary. Tonight's assembly on the penthouse level was where real decisions unfolded, alliances forged in smoke-filled rooms. I adjusted the volume, the muffled voices filtering through like echoes in a cavern. Jean Kang's tone cut in first, low and commanding, addressing his inner cadre. "Tell me about the woman from the hallway earlier, the one handling maintenance at 6 o'clock. Who is she?" A pause hung heavy, the kind that revealed unease among his men. One of his lieutenants cleared his throat, hesitant. "Sir, she's external hire, not on any guest or core lists. Background check came up clean, just standard labor." But she held your gaze without backing down. "No fear, no deference." Another voice chimed in, edged with caution. "We've seen bold types before, but this felt different." She didn't flinch or avert. Almost like she was assessing you right back. I leaned against the cold metal shelf, a faint smile tugging at my lips despite the dim light. They were circling the truth without grasping it, their words painting me as an enigma rather than a threat. My heart steadied. This was the ripple I'd aimed for, drawing attention without exposing my hand. Jin's response came measured, laced with an undertone I hadn't anticipated, amusement, perhaps even respect. "It's rare these days," he murmured, the clink of a glass punctuating his words. "Someone who halts my path with nothing but a steady look." Dig deeper. I want details on her patterns, her routines. If she's more than she appears, we need to know before it complicates matters. The room fell into murmurs of agreement, plans forming like shadows lengthening at dusk. I switched off the feed, slipping the earpiece back into my pocket. That scrap of cloth with the phoenix wasn't the only anomaly tonight. Now, Jin's curiosity had become one too. He saw a puzzle, but I was the one assembling the pieces. Stepping out into the corridor, I resumed my rounds, the weight of their scrutiny fueling my steps. Unbeknownst to them, the hunter had just taken notice of the bait, and the trap was set. The penthouse buzzed with the low thrum of exclusive revelry, crystal glasses clinking under dim chandeliers that cast golden halos over silk dresses and tailored suits. I'd positioned myself behind the makeshift bar in the corner, ostensibly wiping down spilled coasters and shattered stemware from the earlier toasts. The air hung heavy with cigar smoke and whispered deals, the syndicate's elite mingling, as if the world below didn't exist. My uniform itched against my skin, a constant reminder of the facade, but it kept me in the shadows, close enough to observe without drawing fire. Or so I thought. The young enforcer from earlier spotted me first, his broad frame cutting through the crowd like a knife through fog. He sauntered over, a smirk twisting his features as he loomed above the counter. "Still lurking around? Mr. Kong didn't summon the help for this gig, beat it before you become a problem." His words carried a sharper edge now, laced with the entitlement of someone who thrived on intimidation. Before I could shift away, the brunette model, the one with the predatory grace, sidled up beside him, her drink sloshing precariously. She eyed me with feigned sweetness, her voice rising just enough to draw nearby ears. "Oh, it's you again." Words spreading about that little eye contact drama earlier. "Careful, sweetie, you might start believing you're on his radar. But let's be real, he's not into charity cases." Laughter bubbled from her companions, a cluster of perfectly manicured women who leaned in, phones subtly angled my way. One of them tapped her screen, murmuring, "This'll make a killer clip, undercover dreamer crashes elite bash." I caught the flash of a camera lens, the subtle glow of a live stream capturing my every move, complete with mocking overlays. My stomach tightened, exposure like this could jeopardize everything, turning my low profile into a viral liability. As if sensing my unease, the enforcer grabbed a half-empty bottle from the bar and tilted it deliberately, letting red wine cascade onto the floor at my feet, splattering my shoes. "Oops," he drawled, not a hint of apology in his tone. "Better handle that, it's what you're paid for, right? Or do we need to teach you how to stay in your lane? The spill spread like an accusation, sticky and bold, forcing me to kneel with my rag. Fury coiled in my gut, hot and insistent, memories of past degradations flashing unbidden. But I swallowed it down, focusing on the rhythm of the cloth against the tile. This wasn't personal, it was a test of the syndicate's rot, the casual cruelty that bound them. Every drop, every jeer, was intel, proof of the hierarchy I was here to dismantle. I rose slowly, meeting no one's gaze, my resolve hardening like steel and fire. They pushed harder, but I wouldn't break, not yet. As I finished sopping up the wine spill, the sticky residue clinging to my knees like a badge of their contempt, I rose with deliberate slowness, scanning the room without making it obvious. The party's rhythm hadn't skipped a beat, conversations flowed in hushed Korean and English, deals likely sealing fates over champagne flutes, but something had fractured in the periphery. Eyes darted my way more frequently now, not with outright scorn, but with a wary curiosity that set my instincts on edge. From the edge of the bar, I caught snippets of dialogue, fragments carried on the undercurrent of music and laughter. A burly security guard, the one with a scar snaking down his neck, leaned toward his partner, voice barely above a murmur. "That janitor chick, she's off. Watched her fiddling with the vents earlier, like she's wiring a setup. No way a regular scrubber knows those angles." His companion nodded, glancing over his shoulder at me. "Yeah, precise moves, almost military. And that stare down with the boss. She's got brass, man. Doesn't add up for hired help." I kept my expression neutral, stacking clean glasses on a tray, but my mind catalogued their suspicion like fresh entries in a log. This was the turning point I'd anticipated, the moment when cracks in my cover invited scrutiny. In ops like this, doubt could be an ally or a detonator. Right now, it felt like both. I adjusted my posture slightly, ensuring my hidden comms pin stayed concealed under the collar. Further along the wall, the head chef, Mr. Lee again, huddled with a line cook, their aprons smudged from the night's prep. He wiped sweat from his brow, muttering, "I've been watching her since day one. She realigns those air filters like an engineer, not some temp. And handling spills without a flinch. That's training, not instinct." The cook frowned, replying softly, "You think she's planted in a spot this tight? Boss would sniff that out." Mr. Lee shook his head. "Maybe, but she's too calm under fire. Those models dumping wine on her. Most would snap. She just absorbs it." The whispers spread like ripples in a pond, a few more staff stealing glances my direction. One waitress paused mid-pour, eyeing me before resuming her duties. I felt the heat of their collective gaze, a subtle pressure building in the room's atmosphere. Internally, a thrill mixed with caution surged through me. This erosion of certainty meant my presence was burrowing deeper, exposing the syndicate's paranoia. But it also heightened the risk. One wrong whisper to the wrong ear, and my extraction could turn messy. I busied myself with a fresh rag, wiping down the counter's edge, all while plotting my next subtle maneuver. The net was tightening, and I had to navigate it without getting caught. The enforcer's command still echoed in my ears as I straightened from the bar, the rag limp in my hand. The room's energy had coiled tighter, the party's facade cracking under the weight of unspoken questions. Mr. Lee's murmurs with the cook lingered in the background, their doubts seeding the air like invisible spores. I sensed the shift, the way heads turned subtly, conversations dipping as if waiting for a storm to break. Downstairs, now, the enforcer barked again, his hand gesturing toward the service elevator like I was a stray to be shooed. His posture screamed finality, backed by the silent nods of the models clustered nearby, their phones still humming with captured footage. The brunette flashed a triumphant grin, whispering to her friend, "Finally, someone's putting her in check." But then the double doors to the adjacent lounge swung open, and the atmosphere froze. Jean Kong entered, his silhouette cutting through the haze of smoke and low lights like a blade. Conversations halted mid-sentence, glasses paused at lips. He surveyed the space with that unyielding calm, his presence alone demanding obedience. The enforcer straightened instinctively, but his eyes flicked between Jean and me, uncertainty creeping in. I didn't wait for permission. Setting the rag down with a soft thud, I dusted my hands on my apron and met the enforcer's stare head-on. The words formed deliberately, my voice steady and laced with just enough edge to pierce the silence. "Are you certain you don't want me to confirm my assignment to this level?" Directly from Tokyo Ops. The phrase hung there, simple yet loaded, referencing the covert coordination hub that only insiders would recognize, a nod to the international oversight network shadowing syndicates like this one. The enforcer's face drained of color, his bravado crumbling as realization dawned. He stepped back involuntarily, mouth opening in a stammer that never fully formed. "What? How do you?" Murmurs erupted around us, the models exchanging wide-eyed glances, their earlier mockery evaporating. One whispered, "Tokyo Ops. That's not some janitor talk." The security guard from before froze mid-stride, his scarred neck tensing as he pieced it together. Jin's gaze locked onto me from across the room, his expression unchanging on the surface, but I caught the subtle sharpening, a glint of comprehension in those dark eyes. He didn't speak, didn't intervene, but the air between us crackled with unspoken acknowledgement. He knew now, I wasn't the disposable figure they'd painted. In that instant, the power dynamic inverted, the room's hierarchy teetering on the brink of revelation. My pulse raced with controlled exhilaration. I'd dropped the breadcrumb without shattering my cover entirely. The enforcer muttered something incoherent, retreating further as whispers swelled. Jean remained still, observing, and I held his look for a beat longer, affirming that the game had evolved. The storm I'd sensed was here, and I'd just steered its course. The silence after my words was deafening, a vacuum sucking the life from the penthouse lounge. I didn't linger to savor the enforcer's retreat, or the models' stunned faces. Instead, I gathered my tray of discarded glasses and slipped toward the service exit, my steps echoing softly against the polished floor. The door hissed shut behind me, sealing off the party's artificial glow, and I exhaled in the dim corridor, the cool air a brief respite. My comms pin vibrated subtly against my collar, a signal from base that extraction protocols were activating. Phase 1 complete, now came the reveal. Before I could reach the elevator, a sharp alarm pierced the quiet, not the blaring wail of a fire system, but the discreet chime of the hotel's high-security network, reserved for breaches or VIP alerts. It reverberated through the walls, low and insistent, like a predator's growl. I paused, pressing against the shadows, knowing this was no coincidence. Footsteps thundered from the main stairwell, organized and unhurried, the sound of professionals who didn't need to rush because power preceded them. The lounge doors burst open behind me, but I didn't turn. I could hear the chaos unfolding. Gasps rippled through the crowd as a team of 6 figures in sleek black suits entered the space, no guns drawn, no shouts, just an aura of unassailable authority. Their leader, a tall woman with a sharp bob and eyes like laser sights, flashed a matte card emblazoned with the Crimson Phoenix emblem, its flames etched in metallic thread. It caught the light, a symbol that struck fear into syndicates across continents. "We're here on an internal verification protocol," she announced, her voice crisp and devoid of emotion, cutting through the murmurs like a scalpel. "A level Black Phoenix operative has reported harassment during an undercover assignment. All activities on this floor are now under review. Non-compliance will result in immediate escalation to international oversight." The room plummeted into stunned quietude, the clink of a dropped fork the only punctuation. I imagined Jin's face, stoic but calculating the fallout. The enforcer's bravado would be shattered, the models' phones, once weapons of ridicule, now liabilities in a federal net. Whispers erupted in fragments. "Black Phoenix. That's Interpol level." She was the operative. Panic threaded through their tones, the hierarchy they'd clung to dissolving in real time. From my vantage, I allowed a small, internal nod of triumph. The team was my backup, summoned by that single phrase I'd uttered. They moved efficiently, securing devices and herding guests, while I melted further into the hall. The tide had turned. Justice wasn't a shout, it was this calculated arrival, exposing the cracks in their empire. The leader of the team strode forward, her boots silent on the carpet, and extended a slim dossier toward Jean Kong. He accepted it without a flicker of surprise, flipping it open under the lounge's muted lights. I lingered just outside the cracked door, my ear pressed to the frame, the comms feed relaying every rustle of paper and intake of breath. This was the culmination, the unmasking I'd orchestrated from the shadows. Inside the folder lay my profile, Danielle Maya Thompson, Deputy Commander of Black Phoenix Division, Northeast Asia Sector. Specialist in infiltration and risk assessment for high-level organizations. Direct liaison to multinational intelligence coalitions. The pages detailed my credentials, encrypted clearances, operation logs from Tokyo to New York, all stamped with that unmistakable Phoenix seal. No fluff, just facts that dismantled illusions. Gasps sliced through the room like shards of glass. The enforcer's voice cracked first. Deputy Commander. That's impossible. She's been mopping floors for weeks. His denial hung feeble, crumbling under the weight of evidence. The brunette model clutched her drink, her composure fracturing. Black Phoenix. The oversight group. Oh God, we filmed her, we treated her like. Her words trailed into horrified silence, phone slipping from her fingers to the floor. Murmurs cascaded, staff exchanging frantic looks, one whispering, she's been evaluating us this whole time. Every slip, every deal. Mr. Lee's face, visible through the sliver, registered grim understanding. He'd suspected, but this confirmation etched lines deeper into his brow. The security guard with the scar backed away, muttering, no wonder the vents, the comm, she's wired the place. Gene scanned the documents methodically, his fingers tracing the seal. No outburst, no denial, just a deepening stillness that commanded more fear than rage. He closed the folder with a snap, handing it back. So, the observer in plain sight, he said softly, his voice carrying like a decree. The team leader nodded. Affirmative. Her role grants authority to flag violations, recommend dissolutions. Interference with her duties triggers automatic protocols. The lounge transformed into a tableau of regret, models huddling, enforcers averting eyes, the air thick with the scent of exposed vulnerability. I stepped back from the door, my breath even, a quiet vindication blooming within. They'd seen a subordinate, now they faced the architect of their potential downfall. Black Phoenix wasn't myth, it was me, and the reckoning had arrived. The revelations hit like aftershocks, rippling through the lounge in waves of disbelief and dread. I remained concealed in the corridor, the comms feed painting vivid pictures of the fallout, faces paling, postures crumbling under the dossier's undeniable truth. The brunette model reacted first, her glass tumbling to the carpet with a muffled thud, red liquid seeping like blood from a fresh wound. This can't be real, she stammered, voice cracking as she backed into a chair. I mocked her, filmed her like some joke. What if she reports us? My career, everything's over. Her hands trembled, clutching at her necklace, the earlier arrogance stripped away, leaving raw vulnerability. The enforcer, once so bold, slumped against the bar, his broad shoulders deflating like punctured tires. Deputy Commander. Evaluating us, he muttered, eyes darting wildly. I shoved her cart, threatened her. If that's in her logs. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his fingers fumbling with his tie as if it choked him. Whispers from the staff amplified his panic. You dumped wine on her, that's assault on an operative. He sank onto a stool, head in hands, the weight of consequences crushing his bravado into silence. Even the event manager, who'd barked orders like a petty king, faltered. His phone clattered from his grasp, screen cracking on impact. I called security on her, dismissed her like vermin, he whispered, face ashen, backing toward the wall. Black Phoenix clearance. That means audits, blacklists. My contract's gone. His knees buckled slightly, forcing him to grip a table for support, the room's opulence now a mocking backdrop to his downfall. Gene stood apart, dossier returned to the team leader, his composure a fortress amid the chaos. No words escaped him, but I caught the subtle clench of his jaw through the feed, a silent admission. He'd paused for my gaze, intrigued by the anomaly, only to discover the architect behind it. Respect flickered in his stance, mixed with caution, He understood now. I held the strings to unravel his operations. Satisfaction coursed through me, cool and precise. Their collapses weren't vengeance, they were the system's self-correction, biases exposed and punished. I'd endured their barbs, but this exposure rewrote the narrative. As the team began sequestering devices and questioning witnesses, I slipped further down the hall, my role shifting from observer to victor. The empire trembled, and I was the unseen force at its core. The morning light filtered through the rain-streaked windows of Koreatown Plaza, casting a muted gray over the lobby as I made my way toward the revolving doors. It was barely dawn, the city stirring with the distant honk of taxis and the patter of drizzle on sidewalks. I adjusted the strap of my plain canvas bag over my shoulder, the weight of last night's encrypted drive inside a comforting reminder of success. My old janitor's jacket hung loose, its fabric worn from weeks of deception, but today it felt like armor shed, unnecessary in the wake of revelation. No one barred my path. The doorman, usually quick with a nod to regulars, averted his eyes as I passed. A few lingering staff from the night shift, the ones who'd witnessed the team's arrival, huddled near the desk, their conversations dying as I approached. Whispers followed, fragments of awe and regret but no challenges. The enforcer was nowhere in sight, perhaps nursing his shattered ego in some back office. Even the models, if any remained, had vanished into the ether of their disrupted lives. Outside, the chill seeped through my sleeves, mist clinging to my skin like a veil. I pulled the hood up slightly, stepping into the light rain that blurred the neon signs of nearby shops. Footsteps echoed behind me, but I didn't turn. Freedom lay ahead, in the anonymity of the streets. From the upper floors, I sensed a watchful presence, Jean Kong, perhaps standing at a window, his silhouette framed against the glass. He didn't descend, didn't call out. Our paths had crossed in revelation, but pursuit wasn't his style, not yet. Inwardly, a quiet resolve settled. I'd entered as a ghost, endured their disdain, and exited as the force that reshaped their world. The syndicate's facade had cracked, audits would follow, alliances fray. They might rebuild, but the memory of my unyielding presence would linger, a cautionary echo. I didn't glance up, didn't acknowledge the invisible thread between us. The rain washed the hotel's residue from my shoes as I vanished into the crowd, the city swallowing me whole. My mission evolved, but this chapter closed, victorious. Days blurred into a haze after I walked away from Koreatown Plaza, the rain-slicked streets of New York carrying me back to my safe house in Brooklyn. I dove into debriefs, uploading footage and logs to the Black Phoenix servers, each file a nail in the syndicate's coffin. Audits were underway, alliances fraying, low-level operatives flipping for deals. But amid the operational churn, a ping from my monitoring app caught my eye, an anonymous post on the hotel's internal forum, time-stamped hours after the intervention. I used to believe the strongest person in this building was Mr. Kong, it read, the words raw and unpolished, likely from a night shift cleaner who'd lingered in the shadows. He commands rooms with a glance, builds empires from nothing. But last night, I witnessed something else. A woman alone, no entourage, no outbursts or commands. She just stood there amid the chaos, the spills, the sneers, and with one unwavering look, she brought the entire floor to a standstill. No weapons, no threats, just presence that silenced the noise. I don't know her name or her story. Maybe she's gone for good. But that stance. It's etched in my mind forever. It reminds me power isn't always loud or flashy. Sometimes it's the quiet force that reshapes everything. I leaned back in my chair, the screen's glow reflecting off my face. The post had garnered likes and replies, staff sharing similar awe, one admitting, she handled the wine incident like it was nothing. Made me question who really runs things here. Another, if she's the reason for the shakeup, respect. No malice, just a dawning reverence that spread like quiet fire. A subtle warmth spread through me, not pride but affirmation. They'd reduced me to a stereotype, yet this stranger saw the truth, resilience forged in silence, a black woman's unyielding core. It wasn't about revenge, it was the ripple of change, one anonymous voice at a time. I archived the thread, evidence of the mission's deeper impact. The syndicate might regroup, but seeds of doubt had taken root. 3 days blurred into a rhythm of reports and quiet surveillance from my Brooklyn perch, the city's hum a distant backdrop to the digital fallout. I'd tapped into the syndicate's encrypted channels, not to gloat, but to monitor the aftershocks, ensuring no loose ends snapped back at me. A flagged intercept popped up, an internal risk assessment from East Asia Intel hubs, routed straight to Jean Kang's private server. My name topped the priority list, not as a hunted target, but as an untouchable infiltrator who'd breached their fortress without a whisper. Through the feed, I visualized his office, sleek minimalism, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan's sprawl. He sat there, dossier open, absorbing the evaluation that painted me as the phantom who'd mapped their vulnerabilities from the ground up. No dramatic gestures, just that calculated absorption I'd come to expect. His assistant's voice cut in, tentative over the audio. "Sir, should we respond to the Tokyo dispatch? They're pressing for acknowledgement on the breach protocols." Jean didn't reply immediately. The camera angle shifted slightly, perhaps from a hidden lens I'd planted weeks ago, capturing him staring at a still frame pulled from security footage. There I was, in that gray uniform, card in tow, eyes locked directly on the lens, unblinking and resolute. A faint curve touched his lips, not quite a smile, more an admission. "No," he said finally, voice smooth as polished stone. "Some individuals you steer clear of offending." Their silence. "It's your final warning to back off alive." The line went dead, the assessment archived. I powered down the screen, a subtle chill tracing my spine, not fear but recognition. He'd learned the lesson I'd imparted without words: underestimation breeds downfall. My infiltration hadn't just exposed cracks, it had etched a permanent caution into his world. As I stepped to the window, rain pattering anew against the glass, I felt the chapter seal itself. Empires adapt, but echoes like mine, they endure, reshaping the unseen battles ahead.